So, all of you who are here, welcome. My name's Via Williams. I'm the Director of Growth for the Ben Kinney Companies, and I have with me the amazingly talented Debbie DeGrote from Forward Coaching.
Thank you for inviting me. And I know we're going to have an awesome group today. Ben and I were talking about this just a couple of days ago, and he's like, be on time. This is a really good group. I'm like, of course I'm going to be on time. We
He
wouldn't miss
said that
it,
to me
right?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody who knows me knows that they have to tell me that too, Debbie. So it makes two of us. Well, we did this last year. I think that this year, Debbie, it's a lot more complete. I'm really excited that this year we're going to launch a little bit into some wealth building because this is the time of year to kind of start thinking about all of that, right? And it's interesting because I know a lot of people do business planning really early. A lot of people do it in like September, October. And there's something about the year of COVID that feels like we needed to wait, I guess, as long as possible to start doing this until we kind of knew how things were going to unfold. And little did you and I know that we'd be doing this like days after the election. I think you and I thought we would be a week after the
Oh,
election.
my
We
goodness.
didn't know. Oh my goodness.
Someone said the other
So
day,
yeah.
it's been a long year this week, right? I mean, it seems like the year's gone very quickly, but it also feels like each week
Yeah.
was a whole new world. And I have to say, I'm just so impressed with how the agents in your world and mine navigated it and
Yeah.
stepped up, provided great service, and did a great job for their own families. So yeah, good job, guys. Good job.
100%. So incredibly proud of our people. You know, I look out here today and I see all the names, and I remember back to March when I was standing next to Ben when he was addressing the brokerages and the companies, and we just didn't know. We in real time we didn't know it was going to go down, and the people that are here today, Debbie, they stepped up. They never stopped working. They never ever treated this like a snow day, and some of them are having the best year yet. And so I'm hoping we can take some of that momentum and that work ethic and frankly that excitement about real estate that I think a lot of them gained again. And we can now take that from a dream to an actual goal and put it into a plan today, or at least give them the foundation, right, to put it in a plan. So I am going to, with that said, I think we are settling in. It looks like people, like it's kind of slowing down, the people adding. So we are going to go through a slide deck. I want everybody, if you wouldn't mind, I'm super bossy, so just don't mind me. I'd like everybody to pull out your workbooks. If you do not have a workbook, I believe Hattie is going to send a link. Hattie, are you going to put a link on Zoom? Is that right? If you guys ever hear a word, a voice, and it sounds like the voice of God, that's Hattie, my incredible assistant who is right here with us. Ready to jump in. So she just sent the downloadable workbook rather. If you are watching this on replay, because this is going to go on our YouTube channel, if you are watching this on replay, we're going to put the link in comments. Okay, so we'll put the link in comments. I say that I have a YouTube video, Debbie, that I've had up for like 5 years, and I probably get daily requests. I probably get hundreds and hundreds of requests every day for a download from that. And it's right there in the comments. So even though I say that, people still ask, but that's okay. Okay, are you guys ready? This is a workshop. So this means you guys are going to do work, and Debbie and I are just going to walk you through it. And we're going to do the best we can. If you have questions or comments, put them in chat. Hattie's actually going to probably monitor the chat. So you might hear her voice from time to time jumping in because Debbie and I are so locked and loaded on what we're presenting, we may not get a chance to look at that. So we're going to try to make sure we answer all of your questions as we go through this. So if you need clarification, just pop it in there. And we are going to start with what today is all about. So today is about you. It's not about us. It's about you. This is your time. And I'm really happy that you devoted it to plan to your future. This is for your goals, your life, and your results, also your experiences. It's funny because experiences is new to this slide deck, and it's the wonderful influence of Chris Suarez, right? Because his group is the experience group. And as you know, they merged with place. And so Chris is always sure that we include the word experience in things, that, all of this is about our experiences in life. So we appreciate Chris for that. 2021 begins today, Debbie DeGrote. It begins today. And I'm going to bring you to page 2 of your workbook so you guys can turn with us to page 2. For those of you who are maybe newer to our company, or guests of us today, this is our mission, vision, and values of the Mancini Companies. And our mission is delivering the dream of home ownership everywhere. So pretty much all of our assets are geared to do that, right? And that's not just for our clients, guys, that's for you. We're going to go into some wealth building today. And I really, if there's anything you leave with, it's a sense of tying the goals that you set today into wealth building through real estate by the end of this, right? I want you guys to get just as excited about delivering the dream of home ownership to yourself, either for the first time or the second time or the 10th time. But I want you to keep getting excited about that, because it's really one of the best fringe benefits of what we do, right? Our vision statement is win, make, give. And what Debbie and I are going to do today is we're going to present this business planning in 3 segments: how to win, how to make, and how to give. So that's what's on page 2 of the workbook. And I think it's a great place for you guys to have access to that. We're going to start with win. And here we go. This is page 3 of the workbook, but there's really nothing on that page. Okay, so on the second week of the pandemic, Debbie, it was like the second week of March, I went ahead and declared myself and all of our brokerages a winner of the pandemic. I was on a live webinar and I said, you know what, you guys, I don't know about you, but this is my first global pandemic ever. Like, I've never had a global pandemic that I've lived through, and I'm going to win it. And we're all going to win it. And so I declared us all winners, but some very smart person said to me, they said, well, that's awesome, Vija. I love your enthusiasm, but what's the definition of winning the pandemic? Because that's really the elephant in the room. What the heck does winning a pandemic mean? And that forced me, Debbie, to have to go through and define. It helped me have to go, oh, I don't know. I need to define what winning is. And what that did is it spilled over to all areas of my life. And it actually changed the way I talk. So now what I say is, how do I win in this? How do I win in that? And it's helped my brain kind of go, well, I have to have a definition of what winning means in this in order to win, right? When you're really competitive, that works for you. And so we're going to start with win, right? And then we're going to move into make, and then we're going to go into give, because I think a lot of us here have a heart to give it away, right? To just give it all away. So that's going to be the format of the day. So I'm going to have you guys turn to page 4. Debbie, do you want to walk them through?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I love the saying too, what does winning mean to you? You know, for the last 20 years, we've lost count. Last time we added it up, I've done over 80,000 coaching calls with amazing people. And some of you know, I was Ben Kinney's coach back in the day. And yet
you were my coach too, Debbie.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Kind of half the real estate world, I think. But here's the thought, guys. Winning is different for everyone. You know, for some people, as they set their goals, they will often say to me, you know, it's just not just about the money to me. Or, you know, winning means that I dominate my market, or winning means I build a rock star team and I'm really being that great leader that's changing people's lives. So, you know, as Vija said, you really want to determine, as you look at 2021, I ask our coaching clients for you to be looking back December 31st, 2021, saying, I won. This year was amazing. What would that look like for you, right? And then Vija, I think we have our winning worksheet, right? That's coming up next, I believe.
Well, the winning worksheet is, it should be, was that on the next slide deck here?
It's on the next slide. Yep. I think, oh, no, not yet. So managing your thoughts, your energy, your time, and your money. Wow. Has this been a hard one this year, right? I don't know about you guys, but I made a conscious decision to turn off the news, right? And also, there's lots of friends and family members I love, but throughout the pandemic, throughout the elections, they were just too negative or too stressed or too depressed. And I thought, I really have to protect my mindset, my energy. And also, as you look at time, I often notice that agents who might be equally talented, and yet why does one earn so much more? And often via it's really how they use their time.
Yeah, that's
Ben
right.
and I know he's done this with you. We often talk about, if you look at everything on our list that we do every day, what is really that top 20% that we should spend our focus on? And, I think it was Zig Ziglar that used to say 90% of sales success is your mindset. And your mindset is controlled by your thoughts. It's controlled by you eat right, you get some exercise, you do things to keep your energy up, and then you go in and you control your time in your day.
Yeah, 100%. Debbie, the workbook, the worksheet you're talking about is in the workbook, but not on the slide deck. So
Okay.
what Debbie's talking about, it's on page 4 of your workbook. And that's the one, Debbie, you're asking that says manage your thoughts, manage your energy,
Exactly.
manage your time, manage your money. Yeah.
And if anything, occurs to them now, and I realize that you guys are going to go back and you're going to need to spend some quiet time on this. And yet, just as we're going through, if just thoughts occur to you, jot them down, right? You can always go back. You can always do a touch up on the plan. I'm encouraging our clients to take 1 hour a week and find a quiet time. Maybe it's Saturday morning with their coffee, and just focus, put the phone away, no other distractions, and just work through. But today you can get a head start, right? They can jot some notes as they go.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I actually asked Ben about this workbook page. I was like, what did you have in mind for people to fill out on this particular page? And he said, ask yourselves what you can do in each of these areas to win them. I mean, that was what he had in mind. So the focusing question would be, what would winning mean in managing my thoughts? If it's the end of the year and I've won with managing my thoughts, what would that mean? What's the definition of that? And you're sort of defining what winning would mean. And a lot of these, like managing your energy, might be, I feel invigorated all throughout the day and ready to go to work in the morning, excited about it, right? And not tired. So yeah, that's a really good worksheet. And it's probably one, I agree, Debbie, that takes a little bit more thought than just doing here in real time, right? So we'll walk you guys through everything, but I think that you're going to want to take some time after this to do that. All right. So a lot of you guys were in the joint sales meeting. Do you guys get in chat? Who was there when Ben did our group sales meeting for all of our brokerages? Were any of you guys there? We're seeing some hands being raised. It really was good. I see Ben present a lot, as all of you guys do, but Debbie and I are with Ben a lot. That was one of the best presentations I have ever seen him do. In fact, it was so good, we're going to publish that to YouTube. We don't usually publish private meetings that we do, but it was so good. So we have taken, we're going to take a few minutes and go over that because it was sheer gold. And this is so important. And the concept of what I'm about to go into is 60 plus 15, 75 minutes a day can literally change your life, right? That's what I want you to walk away in the end of this segment with. So we're going to talk about the power of 60 minutes. This stemmed from me and Ben talking about what we were doing with our team leaders, and what we're doing with our team leaders is something called Power Hour every day. Not a new concept, right, Debbie? A lot of people do Power Hours. The difference is we created a culture in our team leader executive leadership team, and we decided that we were going to do it together, and we were going to hold each other accountable and do all the things you do to make something culture, right? Where you commit to it in a group and you hold each other accountable. And so when I was explaining all this to Ben, he came up with this module. So I'm just going to go ahead and take credit for it. I'm just going to say, like, I think I helped. I'm just kidding. Well, actually, I'm kind of not just kidding. Check this out, you guys. 60 minutes of daily focus, 1 hour of daily focus ends up at the end of 2021, it will end you with 45 full work days or 9 full weeks of work. That's just 1 hour a day.
Wow.
That's crazy math, insane math, right? So if you commit to 1 hour a day of absolutely focusing on your one thing, the most important thing to move the needle forward, and for 99% of you here, what is it, Debbie? What is that one thing for a real estate agent? We all know.
It's usually lead gen.
Lead gen, that's right.
Mhm.
You guys all commit to 1 hour of lead gen a day, and let's just say that's it. Let's just say you fail on every other aspect of lead gen, but you give it an hour a day, you will literally win the year. It's really that easy. So I think it's important to ask yourself the question, how can you make this a culture in either your team or your office? How can you make this a culture? You can provide accountability around it. You yourself can show up and do it and invite people to join you, right? These are really good mastermind topics for all of our teams that are watching, for you guys to talk about as a team. And then for all of our market centers, people that are, that want, if you guys want to have your market center have a culture power hour, then go lead it. That's the best way to do it yourself. The highest accountability is when you go lead something, right? So the daily plan, so that was the 60 minutes, 60 focused minutes. Now we're going to go into the 15. Remember I said 60 plus 15, 75 minutes a day will change your life. So this is really hard for me. Ben really, I think, is the master of doing this little 15-minute review at the end of the day. Some people do this. I was talking with the team leaders last night. Some of our team leaders do this before they leave at, say, 6. Some of them do it right before they go to bed. It just depends who you are. This is really hard for me, Debbie. I do this in the morning, naturally. I do not do it the night before. And so I'm
When you
going
and
to,
I work with Ben, we know Ben's usually on the phone with us at 8 o'clock at night, wanting
yeah,
to do his 15-minute review. And I'm like, Ben, I got up at 4:15 this morning. Go to bed, Ben.
you and I, Debbie, I get up at 5, right? And so,
Yeah,
and he's just getting to sleep.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So the night before, is tough for me. I won't lie. But Ben swears by it. He swears that if you can clear all this out and sort of dump it out and then go to bed, that the next morning you'll wake up and be a lot further faster, right? Is tomorrow something that happens to me or by me, right? Are you just going to let it happen and be reactionary, or are you going to set a plan your 60 minutes and, go forward and create the day? So here's your 15-minute review. Oh, those of you who are here know that if you spend 15 minutes, research says there's a 174% increase in productivity the following day. And research means Ben says. He made up that stat completely. However, what I will say is, if you believe it, you will be 174% more productive, right? So welcome to BKCO, where stats are made up. All right, so you give yourself 15 minutes per night. And what you do is you review your goals. So the first thing you want to do is think about what those goals are. I'm trying to find it here. There we go. What those goals are. And then you want to think about when you're going to plan your power hour, and you want to write that in. And then Ben asks you to visualize what winning means for your big goals of the day. So here's the thing with goals. If there's no plan behind them, you're just there, you're being dreamy. You're being, airy fairy, as Gary says, right? We have to have a plan behind a goal. So you need to spend 15 minutes visualizing what winning means in all of these areas, and then writing your goals for the day down and making sure, checking those goals with what you want to move the needle forward with, right? And then you need to check and make sure that your power hour is on there. And then you need to look at your schedule, and you need to delete things that really are not on your one thing and then are not making your day as impactful as it should, right? So he has a whole process behind this that he goes over. And when we get that video, what we'll do is we've kept track of all of you guys who are registered. When we get that video prepared, we will send you an email with the link of it to YouTube, because Ben goes through, it's one of his best presentations he's done. And I don't think I'm overselling it. He goes in detail what he does during this 15-minute planning session. But it was important for me to plant the seed that since we're planning 2021, what a phenomenal new habit for you to start now. Because if you start it now, you will just roll into 2021 hot. So it was important for me to kind of bring that up a little bit. All right, Debbie, let's move on so that we can really get in the weeds here with everybody. What are we on? 28, 28, 28. All right. So Debbie, I think you're going to kind of walk us through a little bit
Sure.
some reflection of 2020.
And as you do this, of course, we have time left. So you're going to need to do a little bit of forecasting. So we want to take a look at all of the categories of your business, income, units. I'm a big fan of encouraging our coaching clients to focus on units versus volume. Now, it's great to, count and track that volume, of course. And yet I find if you take your income goal and you take a look at what did I do this year? How many units? What was my average sales price? And I know if I set my New Year's goal based on a realistic and not ridiculously low, but conservative average sales price, when I do a few big deals, now the volume is just going to skyrocket. Otherwise, what sometimes I see happen, you do a few big deals, you get a little bit lazy. So let's take a look and really say, how did my year go? What is the income that I've earned? What can I still close? If I do a couple more deals, a handful more, I can close them on time by the end of the year. What will I go into the new year with pendings? So that we really have a good foundation to say, what can we build on for 2021? So you might not have the answers to every category. For example, maybe you didn't track how many actual listing appointments you went out on. Do your best estimate, and yet I would really encourage you to track these categories in the new year, because if you can also set goals inside of your goals to increase your conversion ratios, now you make more money in less time, but you need to know your numbers. So this would be step one.
Yeah, and a great way to track listing appointments is for you or an assistant or someone who's helping you to go back on your calendar. You can at least get a rough gauge, because a lot of people are good about saying, hey, the Johnson listing meeting or Johnson CMA appointment or whatever it is. Yeah.
And I always encourage them, be careful. I don't consider a listing appointment where a past client called and said, could you pop by? I'm thinking of selling next year. I'd love to talk with you for a few minutes, because that would be unfair to you. It would look as if you didn't win at that appointment. And yet a true listing appointment, that's what they're expecting. You go in, you do your presentation, and you attempt to get that listing. So those true listing appointments, not the pop-bys, right? But the actual listing appointments. And Via, people often say to me, well, I take 85% of what I go out on, and that's awesome. And yet, if you're adding new sources that might be strangers to you in 2021, don't be dismayed if that possibly shifted your ratio of listing taken down. Just know that, well, those are going to be a bit tougher. I'll work on my skill. If you are consistently at that 85% ratio, I always think, well, an athlete always looks to break their own record. So why not 98.2%? And people will say to me, well, why not 100? There's a saying that there's more nuts in the world than squirrels to eat them. And what's really funny, guys, I've got this high flower bed around my office here, and it is like squirrel mecca this week. There must be a lot of nuts out there. They're like fighting over here in the corner. So my point being, you're not going to want 100% of the listings you go out on. However, you probably would want 98.2. So whatever is your personal best, keep pressing to improve those conversion ratios. And so it's good to track that. So you will have that for 2021. So now, as you set your goals for the year ahead, I've often met with clients over the years who would say a number, and I would say, I'm curious, how did you select that number? And they would say, well, I was in some event and they said, double it, triple it, quadruple it, think bigger. And yet I found that that number really wasn't their number.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you want to press yourself. I always think of the saying, make hay while the sun shines. We will probably have another very strong real estate year next year. So certainly press yourself to do your best to achieve all that's possible. And yet the number you put down as your goal, that should be the goal that you are prepared to fight for. Every goal has a price. So am I willing to pay the price to achieve that number? And that doesn't mean sacrifice all of your life and have no balance. It's just, is that a real number to you? And then you might even potentially do what many of our clients are doing, which is they're saying, all right, I want to try to achieve that number by October 31st, closed and pended. And then I'm going to have a heck of a lot of fun by setting a stretch goal. And if I hit that stretch goal by December 31st, I get to add a terrific reward. Take my family to Hawaii, do something amazing. So set the number that makes you a little uncomfortable, and yet you can do it. And then you can always go back and try to beat your own self and personal best and add that stretch goal at the end.
So Debbie, as we review 2020, and I think we're going to move into the gap analysis, there's been a lot of chat on the chat box about, there's a lot of new agents here who have never done this before. They haven't closed their first deal. And Kenny was like, is this a good, webinar for me to sit through if I've never been in real estate? And I just wanted to address, because everyone kind of started answering, me too. Anyone here who's never sold real estate, you are in the right place. Had I have been able to sit through something like this before I even started selling, it would have been so much farther faster. And you may not have, your year-end projections on the workbook, they may not exist. That's okay. There's, for the agents here that are still finishing out their year, I think it's a worthy exercise, and Debbie's going to go into the gap analysis right now to help us set us up for our 2021 goals. But sit tight with us for a few minutes. If you've never sold real estate, I understand there won't be a gap analysis. I understand you can't do a 2020 review, but you are in the right place because you're going to get all of this foundational knowledge with us today.
I see Giovanna sold her first house yesterday. Yay!
Yay! Congratulations.
So just a quick story, guys. When I got started in real estate, so the way I got started was I was going to go to college. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. My parents didn't have much money at all. And then they had some financial setbacks. There was no money for college. And my Sunday school teacher was a broker. And he said, get your license, work with me for a year, save some money, sell real estate part-time, go to school. And the very first thing he did when I walked into the office, he handed me the book, Think and Grow Rich. He said, you want
Napoleon Hill.
Read it? Yeah, Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. He said, you need to read it every year. You need to memorize what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And then he told me to write on a piece of paper how much money I wanted to make in the next 12 months. And he told me to do everything we're telling you guys to do today, to post that, to look at that, to tell people who supported me about that. I have to be honest, I'd not been exposed to that, thought it was a little silly. And yet I didn't think so when I ended the year $100 over what I wrote down. And so, yes, you may not have the numbers yet, and yet you are in the right place, because I don't know, what would you say, Vija? I have to say there's a huge percentage of the real estate world that never sets goals. That
100%.
Goes into the year, without a plan. Now, yes, you wouldn't be able to do the gap analysis in the way we're going to discuss. And yet I think all of us could look at this and say, okay, how are we about controlling our time? Are we disciplined with the things we focus on? Back to our energy. Could we do things to improve our energy? Because this business takes a lot out of you. So, what are some of the things that will kind of like an athlete, that's getting into
Hmm.
shape? It doesn't matter what sport they're playing, they have to get into shape to play that sport. So, I remember I walked into the real estate office my first day as an independent contractor at 11:30, and my broker said, "What do you think you're doing?" I said, "I'm coming to work." He said, "It's 11:30." I said, "But I'm an independent contractor." He said, "Not if you work here." So for the
I
rest,
love it.
yeah. So for the rest of you who have actually been selling real estate this year or quite some time, see a couple of thoughts that I want you guys to think about as you do your plan today. One of the passions that Ben and I share on the coaching side is that you are all so unique. Your market's unique, your personality, your strengths, your talents. So you're like a puzzle. So there's no one size fits all approach to the business. Everyone can find their own path. And inside of that path, there are definitely those things you are already extremely good at. For some of you, that might be I am incredibly great at networking. I'm amazing at working with my past clients. They love me, they give me referrals. So, whatever those strengths are for you, if you came to me and said, "Well, Debbie, get me ready for the year ahead," one of the first things I would encourage us to do is let's look at those areas where you are very good and let's find the gaps. Via, Fred said, right, from here in
Hmm.
Orange
Of course.
County.
Yeah.
Awesome, Fred. And so Fred was at an event Ben and I did last January, and I used a little challenge. So I'll use it with you guys today. I said, let's do an example of the gap analysis. Who in the room is amazingly fabulous at their connections and communication with their past clients in Sphere? Fred raised his hand. I said, "Fred, come on up here." He whipped off all the things that they do and it was amazing. Guys, I was blown away. I was actually thinking, is this going to be the first time that I can't find a gap? Right? Because they had the drip campaigns and the community events and all the stuff going on. And lo and behold, as I asked Fred questions, we came to a critical question. So, Fred, how often do you call them? Well, not often enough. And then when you call them, what do you say? Yeah, well, I don't actually have a great approach or ask for referrals. See, here's the awesome thing. When you find those gaps and you tune them up, it's like you instantly get more traction, more business, and it's in those things you are already good at. So, yes, you have gaps. The good news is you have gaps. So when you fix them, before you move on to other bright and shiny ideas, fix the gaps in what you already do well, and you'll see an improvement. In some cases, remarkably quickly.
Well, let's move into it. So now, oh, sorry, I went to the wrong thing. We are on page 6. So on page 6 of your workbook, you are going to see a gap analysis worksheet.
Mhm.
Debbie, are there any tips for everybody besides kind of what we've already talked about to fill this out? Am I ahead or behind in my progress towards my 2020 goal?
Mhm.
Changes?
Yes.
Anything on here? Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, let me go to my page there really quickly. So, for example, if we say, "All right, am I ahead or behind in my progress?" So, if you're behind, and many of you may be far ahead, if you're behind, then you want to look at what are the reasons that you're behind. And honestly, the one that I usually hear the most is I'm just not having enough conversations. I'm not having enough quality conversations. Via when I talk to, and I'm not saying this group, but when I talk to agents across the country, especially when I was doing a lot of traveling before COVID, it would not be unusual for me to have hear over and over again. I talk to 3 or 4 people a week. 3 or
Yeah.
4 new contacts a week. So if you're behind in your progress, what's the cause of that? And what are the changes you need to make? I often ask our clients, what do you need to stop doing now and forever? What do you need to start doing immediately if you're going to achieve those goals? So that would go into activities or actions I must take. Back to the power hour, I think for a good majority of the people here, if they not only locked that time in their schedule and did it with absolute complete focus, I think they would see that that one thing alone might be the very tipping point to having the best year of their career, just by having that focused hour where they're not texting and they're not having people walk in and out and talk to them. And they often say to me, but I'm so busy, a lot's going on and I'm working on my deals. So here's what I often say. If you had let's just pick a big number, $1 million listing appointment, a really exciting one, and you were there with that seller for an hour, would you be answering the phone when your child called to ask what's for dinner? Would you be allowing interruptions and distractions? And yet that power hour, that is your appointment with your future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that one thing could be your new activity you must take. And what did you not do well in 2020? Ben and I and Via, I'm sure you'd say the same thing. We're really hard on ourselves. We're always looking at, okay, so here's our ratios, here's what we're doing, here's where we're succeeding. And yet it's not good enough. How do we do better? What are those small areas of improvement we could make? And then the last one, the top 3 priorities to prepare for the year ahead. I think of it like clearing the decks, cleaning up things like I need to really get my CRM up and running. I need to get my people on drip campaigns. I've got to go through and touch base with all of my past clients and find out how has COVID impacted their real estate plans. So what are those priorities that you must accomplish, and then set your deadline? Because if you're going to take a break, and take a few days off at Christmas, you may want to have those priorities completed prior to that, right? And
Yeah,
then
and Debbie, you know what I wanted to just pepper in, because I can't stress the 60-hour power hour enough. I read recently, check this out, you guys, the average American worker gets interrupted every 7 to 9 minutes at work. You have a 30% chance of never going back and resuming what you were interrupted doing. So about a third of people will never go back to it. And every time you're interrupted, research shows, this is neuroscience research, shows that it'll take 32 to 34 minutes to get back into what you were originally doing.
So multitasking is not a virtue, it's a sin.
It's a myth. It's a myth. You can't even.
There was another corporate study I read a while back that said many large corporations, obviously this was before COVID when they were all working together, that they went to an hour of silence a day. Each employee had to have an hour of silence. Couldn't talk to anyone, just focus and work on the projects that were on their desk, on their computer. They found that in 1 hour, they accomplished the equivalent of normally what would take them 3 hours. Mistakes decreased by more than 50%, and they reported being less stressed and just personally a lot happier because they were able to focus. So There's that great book. Who wrote it? The Power of Focus. Remember that great book? It's a really good one.
No, but it's one of our amazing guests here is probably going to Google that and look it up and put it right there in chat. Hattie.
Good book. Yeah.
All right. So everybody is going to reflect 2020, kind of predict how they close out their year, Debbie. Then they're going to do the gap analysis. Before we get into 2021, and you just gave the perfect segue, I want to spend a couple minutes talking about habit stacking and what I think is the most important habit that all of you here can improve on. 100% of all of you can improve on this, right? Including me, by the way. I speak to myself. And that is tracking your numbers daily. I preach this like I'm on a pulpit. So what inevitably happens is everybody asks me what they should track. So we're going to walk through, we're just going to spend a few minutes and we'll get right back to Debbie walking us through our 2021 plan. But this is really important. The reason we have to track our numbers daily, guys, is it will leave you. You will never remember. No one remembers exactly how many people they talked to yesterday, who they met with, what they said. It just doesn't happen. And what I know about real estate agents is that it might actually be a mutually exclusive thing that if you're a really good salesperson, you're a really bad tracker. Like you should almost take pride in it if you're a really bad tracker, because behaviorally, if you were really a good tracker, I'm not sure you're a hunter. I'm not even sure you're a good salesperson, right? So it actually should be hard for you. And if it's easy for you, doesn't mean you're not a great salesperson. You're a minority. Like almost all salespeople are bad trackers, and I don't even think you should feel bad about it. So the biggest hack I have, and we're going to go through what I think you should track. The biggest hack I have that I have used for years, Ben uses it, all of our team leaders use it, and that is to text yourself every day or text someone else every day. Here's the concept. The concept is if you can toss and just get rid of the raw data every day, you don't have to worry about compiling it. Don't worry your pretty little heads about compiling anything. All I want you to do is dump the raw data, the activities of your day, either to an accountability partner, to an assistant, to a coach, to yourself, and it's going to sit there. And you're just going to have a running track of raw data. Later on, either you or someone else can take that and compile it in a very simple spreadsheet to start coming up with the ratios that Debbie and I talk so much about, right? It is not intimidating. All you need to worry about right now is getting in the habit of reporting your numbers daily to yourself.
Oh,
do you have
absolutely.
anything that, yeah.
No, if you saw on my desk, I have all these trackings. I didn't do this, guys. I had my team. They know what numbers I want to review, what's important to me, what ratios we're looking to achieve. And as we do things throughout the day, they go into the appropriate spreadsheets. So I can, at a glance, access those reports, which we typically review weekly, 5 or 10 minutes. And then we review them for 20, 30 minutes monthly, because again, sometimes a gap will emerge and you'll realize, oh, there's a problem here. I didn't know it.
Yep.
I can fix it. And I don't want to let this get 3, 4, or 5 months down the road. So, right. You don't have to do it. 100%. Just get someone to do it for you. Absolutely.
100%. Your only job is to report the raw data. And Debbie, to just, build on what you just said, the reason I said don't worry about compiling it right now is honestly, what's interesting is when you wait a month or 2 or 3 and then you compile it, because that's when you really start seeing the patterns. I think that where a lot of agents get lost is they build these fancy spreadsheets and they say, okay, I'm going to start tracking it into the spreadsheet every day. It's too much. You just dump your raw data, and then we're going to work on down the road. Reach out to me. We'll do a little coaching. Reach out to Debbie. They'll do a little coaching. Point is that we'll work with you on how to compile it. You just worry about the raw data right now. So here's what I think are the 5 things to track. If you've never tracked numbers, these are the 5 things that I recommend tracking. Number of contacts. A contact is defined. Debbie, I'd be curious to hear if my definition is the same as yours. A real estate conversation. It can be text, it can be messenger, it can be voice to voice, as long as there's a 2-way conversation about real estate. Is that your definition, or?
With a decision-making adult, of course. That's Perfect. How I usually add that. And it depends on how hard on yourself you are. Some of our great coaching clients will only count a eye-to-eye or ear-to-ear conversation. They will count text or email in a different category as a valuable category, but they often hold themselves accountable to those actual live conversations. But I like your thought about a 2-way. So, they're going back, they're in dialogue with you. I think in today's world, some people just prefer to communicate via text, especially.
I get asked that question a lot. I'm so glad you brought it up. So, I think in a perfect world, you would track them separately. I think you'd track, voice to voice, eyeball to eyeball, and then you'd track messenger /text/DM. I think that where because I coach so many incoming agents, I would rather just have one number with all of your contacts than
Yes.
nothing. And so if it feels a little overwhelming for you to start breaking them down, don't do it. Let's just focus on, very simple, right? Keep it simple. Down the road, if we're not seeing the results and the ratios we like, I think then there's an argument for really breaking it down, because then we can go, okay, consistently I'm doing 15 texts and direct messages and messenger and say 5 voice to voice, and I'm not getting the results I want. Then we can look at the data and go, okay, well, what if we did 10 and 10? And then after 30 days, we can go, oh, my results change. I guess that made a difference. So I do think that it does probably make a difference, Debbie. And I think that's super valid. And if nothing else to start, guys, track your contacts, right?
And really quick, because I think this is a really important one. A group email doesn't count as a contact. We're
Thank
talking
you.
about
No.
something that could lead to a conversation, could lead to an opportunity. And be careful. Sometimes we can hide from real lead generation in emails and texts. So
right.
you have to have a good blend of all of them. And there's a great formula for a very effective text: statement, question. So for an example, if I sent to Vija, hi Vija, happy Thanksgiving in advance. I wanted to check in and let you know the real estate market is incredibly strong. I was wondering, what questions about the market would you like to discuss with me? Or do you have time you'd like to talk and catch up? So statement, hello, market strong. What would you like to know? And what I'm having clients do right now that may work for all of you is I'm telling them, set an amount per day, not too many, 5, 10, because a lot of them will reply to you. Send that out, and those can become your scheduled conversations tomorrow, because they reply back and say, yes, I'd like to talk about the value of my home, or yes, I have a friend interested in buying. And so the ratio seems to be around 25-30% responding to the text saying, yes, I'd like a conversation. And that makes it very easy for you to have those ear-to-ear conversations or eye-to-eye the next day, because they're actually requesting it. So it makes you very comfortable. Don't do though what my husband did one day. He thought this was a really good idea, and he didn't have a lot going on a Friday, and he texted 100 people. Well, he was pretty busy all weekend.
That's awesome, though.
Right?
That's
awesome. I was
awesome.
excited, but texting is very, very tremendous tool if you do it the right way. So you're trying to engage, open a conversation, and hopefully spark an opportunity to actually speak with them.
Well, I love that. And so we can leave it up to you guys. And that opened my mind to the thought that, what if you just did track voice to voice or eyeball to eyeball, and then your texting becomes a vehicle to get to that. So that opened my mind. Thank you for that. It's really, I think, important to track appointments set and also appointments held. Our sales cycle, remember guys, in real estate, it's contacts to appointments to agreements. There's a point in the middle. People jump from appointments to, we call them mutual acceptances here, Debbie. A lot of people call them pendings or going into contract. But remember, there's an agreement in there. There's either a listing agreement or a buyer listing agreement in there, that's in that interim. And then mutual acceptance and pendings, and then closings. I think the other thing, when we talk about tracking numbers, and Debbie touched on it earlier, but especially for the new agents watching, there's a direct relationship between either knowing what your average sales price is, especially new agents, or estimating. So new agents, I want you guys to work with your team leaders, your branch managers, your coaches, your productivity coaches, and start working on what's a realistic expectation of what you think your average sales price is going to be, because you can see this is all from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, but this is a really good example. No one has a median price of 150K anymore. You can tell this book's outdated. But if you look at, to get to 2.4 million in commission income, if your average price is 150K, you need to close 534 units, right? But if your average price is 300K, it would be 267 for a lot of you in the Seattle area. I mean, the median in Seattle is 770. The median in Kirkland and Bellevue right now is like someone's going to correct me, but 1.3, 1.2. So we have a high, sales price average. And so it's really important to kind of know that. We're not going to go over this today, but this is on page 183 of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And this is what we call this is kind of the walking you through the economic model. And so that's a really good reference for you. I actually have a really good calculator that I've built that is this on Google Drive that I can also have Hattie share the lead with. All right. So remember, leads lead to contacts. Contacts lead to appointments. All real estate conversations, 100%, your goal is to set an appointment. Your goal is to not sell on that. Your goal is for an appointment. Now, sometimes a phone conversation, especially in the times of COVID, Debbie, sometimes a phone conversation turns into an appointment, and we would track that as an appointment. That's where our worlds are changing a little bit. All real estate conversations, you have one goal and one outcome. So you want to ask yourself before you lead generate, you're like, okay, this is going to be my power hour. Your outcome you always want in mind, guys, is how many appointments do I want out of this? Mm-hmm. One of the fundamental things I teach when I teach open houses is, and it'll change your world. If you walk into every open house and say, the outcome of this open house that I want are appointments. What people used to say is the outcome I want is a bunch of names and numbers to follow up with. And that's plan B. That's okay. Plan A is a real lead in an open house, guys, is an appointment. And ideally that appointment is an hour after the open house, right? So we train our agents, if your open house is from 1 to 4, you need to tell your honey bunch of oats that you are working till 5 or 6, because hopefully, hopefully you're going right into an appointment.
I can't even tell you how many houses I sold right after open house, showing 100%. Somebody one house. So I often tell our coaching clients, right along with what you said, to measure what is my attitude, how am I feeling when I'm showing up to do my lead generation today? What is my approach? And that would be your script or your game plan. And what am I expecting to get? I've heard over the years so many coaching gurus say it's a numbers game. It is. That is true. If you make enough. In fact, there's a great story. He's on my phone. He was texting me the other day, a top broker here in Newport Beach, California, that when he started his real estate career 40 years ago, he came from a foreign country. His English was very broken. And he said, Debbie, I called 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hi, this is, do you want to sell your house? And he just did that all day, all day, all day, all day. Well, he took like 100 listings that year, but that was a little painful, right? Next year, he got a better script, right? So you want to look at all of those: attitude, approach, expectation, because sometimes you can show up and grind a lot of calls without a lot of results. So you really want to bring that A game and that focus of how many appointments do I really need?
Well, and like what all the new agents are getting out of this are, if you just call and say, do you want to sell your house? Do you want to buy a house? That's
you
like
get
really,
listings. You do get listings.
It's just a numbers game.
You do. Hey, we all have to start somewhere, right? I remember door knocking, my first day door knocking, and a lady comes to the door and she's got okay, guys, this is going to date me, a Yellow Pages phone book. And some of the millennials are like, what's a Yellow Page?
What is that?
Right? A phone book in her hand, and she said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you came by. My mother passed away. I flew in. I have to list the house this afternoon. I don't know who to call. Could you please list my house? So sometimes the harder you work, the luckier you get, right?
That's incredible. That was your first day door knocking?
That was my first day door knocking. Absolutely.
Wow. That's incredible. That's a good story. That's a great story. All right. Well, appointments are the key. Appointments are what you live for. Appointments are your moment. We can talk about that in a different webinar. Mike Ferry, or I think it was Mike Ferry, actually used to do a 15-minute before segment where you're like an athlete or an actor getting ready for your performance. Like, your appointments are your everything. We work, 40 hours a week for that magic time that is kind of where we perform. I think about it. My son is a music performance major. He's an oboe player. And I was trying to figure out the amount of hours he spent. We figure he's at about 3,000 hours, where he's between 2,500 and 3,000 hours of his 10,000 hours. So he's at University of Texas at Austin, and he's incredibly talented. And Debbie, we calculated he practices 99.5% of his playing time is in practice, and only about 0.5% in performance.
Sure. So this is important. And some of you may know, I used to run the Mike Berry organization for 13
That's why I brought him up.
Yeah. And so the thing about the 15 minutes before, it was about, the mental game, what are, like, one of the clients I coached for years, Daryl King in Canada, he used to play the theme song from Rocky, Eye of the Tiger, on his way to his listing appointments, top down, even in the snow. He got pulled over a few times by the cops, right? Because he's blasting that and driving in the snow. But it was, what works for you? Is it saying affirmations? Is it listening to scripts? Is it practicing on the phone with your admin as you're heading there? What are the objections? Is it listening to Eye of the Tiger? I do, though, encourage you to take it a step back. As everything Vija just said, how precious the nuggets of gold, the opportunity to get out on that appointment. And yet I see so many agents who, well, I'll get ready for that tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow morning, a deal blows up, and now they're racing, trying to throw their stuff together. They're frantic and shockingly late for that appointment. So really, I always had to have a good rule. I encourage the clients 24 hours a day, or 24 hours ahead, be totally prepared. A half an hour before it's time to leave your office or your home office, shut everything down, take that information out, go through it, and also thinking about that client. What's their personality? How am I going to have to adapt to communicate effectively? What are the questions I need to ask them? And please don't take phone calls on the way to that appointment. It's going to distract you. Turn your phone off, because what if you get a call that your best deal just fell through? You're not going to show up in the right mindset. So think of that as they prepare for the Super Bowl. They're not texting their girlfriend and going on Facebook or taking phone calls. They are focused. That's where the rubber really, really meets the road.
Hey, do you want a good hack, Debbie, for that sure. I use that I love? Not just for that, I use it just for a regular morning sometimes. There's an app, and it's called Think Up. And you can record affirmations in your own voice, and it provides a music bed. By the way, it provides hundreds of, maybe even 1,000, I don't know how many, hundreds of affirmations for you to get ideas and brainstorms about. And you can segment them. You can say pre-listing, whatever it is, a Monday affirmations, whatever you want, or you can group them all and you can play them and listening. So you're talking to yourself. So listening to the affirmations under a really soothing music bed, it's the most amazing app I have on my phone. It's called Think Up.
Proven that your mind accepts it more when it hears it in your voice. So that's why it's powerful.
That's right, Ann. Yeah, it's Anna. Anna just typed it in. It's called Think Up. It does cost money. I think it's worth the money it costs. There's the free version's not stellar, but anyway. All right. So appointments are the key. So glad that we're taking the time to go through this, and that means a listing presentation and a buyer consult, right? And all appointments, we want the outcome we want, Debbie, is an agreement. Sometimes it does move straight to writing a contract. Right. And usually though, the next phase would be an agreement. So that's why we're just going through the 5 things we're tracking, right? And then agreements go to mutual acceptances or pendings. And then pendings, of course, go to solds and GCI. So we're going to kind of walk through 2021 now. We're going to get you ready to get on page 7 of your workbook. Is going to be the next page. Again, this is from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So I did throw a couple of those pages into here so that you could kind of go back later and cross-reference if you wanted. This is on page 181. And I think it's a pretty good guide of conversion ratios. If you are new and you have no idea what the heck a conversion ratio is, don't worry about it. Your team leader, the person who invited you, your coach, me, all of us can help you with that, right? The rule of thumb, though, as Debbie and I kind of walk through this, is the newer you are, the lower the ratio. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's just math. Like I always say, IJM. And the thing about it is, it's very empowering to know the numbers. And how do we know the numbers? We track them every day. So if you are new and you're listening and you're like, blah, 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 track numbers. That's the one thing I probably want you to get out of this whole thing, because what starts happening, and some of you guys, you're going to resonate with this. You're going to really resonate. What starts happening is what I used to do at my former brokerage before I came to Keller Williams every year. And by the way, we always did it in January, which now that I think about it, it's kind of weird, but because it's too late. Every January, we would all sign up and we would go to our branch manager's office and we would do business planning. And it was about 20 or 30 minutes and we'd sit in there. And every year I walked in and I would say, it was a fluke. Last year, she would have my numbers from the year before. I go, it was a fluke. I won't be able to do that again. I had this happen and this happen, and I just don't know how I can recreate it. And yet every single year I increased, right? And so every year, so finally, like by the 5th year, she took a look at me and she said, Via, I'm going to stop you. You've come into this office for 5 years, convincing yourself and trying to convince me that it's a fluke. It is not a fluke. You're just not tracking your numbers. It's all math. You just don't know what the math is. So I will say to you guys, there's math happening in your life. You can choose to be aware of it or unaware of it. But if you don't track your numbers, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. What is happening is you're having a certain amount of contacts. Those are leading to a certain amount of appointments. Those are leading to a certain amount of agreements, into mutuals, into pendings, into solds. So, I mean, it's just math, and you can choose to know it or not know it. I can share with you guys, almost 20 years in, your stress level your stress will thank you for knowing the numbers.
Absolutely, because you may discover that it takes me 25 conversations to get a deal. Or I did this once when I ran my ferry organization. We looked at all the numbers of all the clients. And of course some had great pipelines of past clients, some were doing cold calls. But when we ran the numbers across the board, it was about, on average, 95 conversations to a listing appointment. That's what it came out to be. Well, then if you looked at your own numbers and said, well, no, mine is actually 50. Okay, great. Now, if I want X amount of listing appointments, I know I need to talk to X amount of people. And then you can also challenge yourself. Now, how can I do that in 35 contacts, right? So it is math. And in the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, I love a line in that book, a predictable process will create a predictable result. And then that gives you the security that actually does dramatically reduce your stress.
Well, 100%. I love that. And, what I know, guys, is that if your number is, 100 to 1, let's say for every 100 contacts, which is a lot, right? Well, that's 20 a day. And if you start adding open houses, and we're starting to have open houses, and let's say, you can get 20 on a weekend, you can just start, it's just you're reverse engineering it. And remember what it does, right? When you start tracking them is when people come into open houses, you say, well, I want a listing. So you remember to use scripts that are asking them if they have a home to sell. And so it actually changes your behavior and your activities. So if you talk to 100 people a week, which you can do, my goal's always been about 20 a day, by the way. If you talk to 100 people a week, that's one listing appointment a week. It will change many of your lives to go on 4 listing appointments a month. It won't take much. If you go on 4 listing appointments a month, and let's say you're at 50% conversion ratio and you get 2 listings a month from that, that's 24 listings. And in some of our markets, Debbie, where the average price is $700,000 or $800,000, it's a life-changing mathematical equation.
So before we move on, it goes back to agreements and also to conversion. I want to share a thought with all of you as well about the agreement portion. I have a coaching client that we've worked with now, came to us in the beginning of the year. He's right here in Newport Beach. His average sales price is probably 2.5 million. He's been in the business for 30 years, a wonderful guy, amazing agent, consistently would do about 60 million in volume. This is a rock star guy. And he came to me because he said, I'm very frustrated. On the listing appointments I go out on, I only take 48%. And these are not strangers. They're in my geographic farm or they're in my sphere. And I'm thinking, oh, we have a problem. Somewhere we have a problem. It's not his skill. It's not his amazing, beautiful presentation with all the marketing. So I asked him this question. So when you go to these appointments, are you actually taking the listing agreement with you? He said, no, I'm not. I said, so when it goes well, how do you move them forward? He said, I tell them, call me when you're ready. And I said, what do you do if they don't call? He said, I wait. So he's not a high D, Vija. He's not. He's a high S&C. So for those of you who are not super familiar, he is not a driver, hardcore grinder. And I didn't attempt to turn him into that. I just said, just take the agreement, clip it to the inside left. So it's just right there. That's why they invited you over. And when things go well, just ask this simple question: by when would you like your home sold to the right buyer? Not by when do you want it on the market, because everybody dreads that, but by when do you want it sold to the right buyer? And then the time frame they tell you, find a legitimate way to spark urgency and say, all we need to do now is simply go ahead, sign the agreement, and we'll get to work. That's all I asked him to do. I said, now if they push back, I knew he wasn't going to stay there and grind them. I said, just set a time before you leave for the next conversation. His listing taken ratio went to 90%.
Oh, wow. 90%.
Because he didn't change much. So that's why it's so important to look at these numbers, look at the conversion. And of course, the message here is, please take the agreement with you. Please.
I love that. And a lot of it, I love that we don't talk about closing enough because it is awkward. I mean, you're in their dining room or whatever. My big close is, we kind of get, we're at the end and I basically just say, so Debbie, the next step is to sign the paperwork. Are you ready to go? And if they ever push back, I say, yep, I understand it's in 30 days. What's important to me is that I can schedule my absolute top-notch stager and photographer.
Right.
And we're going to have drone, we're going to have video. And in order to do that, we have to sign the paperwork. So if we can get that started, then I can go and my whole staff can go to work for you. We can be doing all these things behind the scenes. And if we have to bump the date, that's okay. So, yeah.
You would be shocked if you knew how many agents I talk to when they come to us for coaching that do not take the agreement with them. I'm going to tell you it's probably 80%.
I'm actually not shocked because I didn't used to either. And it was not, that I would say that's a newer version of me. It was not taught at my former brokerage, and I'm actually not shocked at all. A lot of us used to operate that way. And since I've changed, I don't know my ratios. That's dramatic to go from 50% to 90%, but I can share with everybody they've gone up. Whatever the number was back then.
Well, I remember, like you, he was very, very good. And I'm a high D, so if you came to my house and didn't bring the listing agreement, I would think you're weak and I wouldn't hire you.
Yeah.
I would say, why are you wasting my time? I wanted to list my house. So yeah, it's amazing though. Those numbers are phenomenal to track. And then you can find, again, going back to that gap analysis, you can find the gaps.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is also so this is just me referencing back to the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Sometimes we call that the MREA. So this is a clip. I actually don't have the page number on this one. So, all right. We are on number 43, Debbie, for your reference. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to workbook page 7. Workbook page 7. And this is our 2021 production goals. So Debbie, do you want to walk us through, and I'll just jump in if I see.
Sure. Do you have the form to put on the screen, or you want me to go right to mine in the book?
I am going to, yeah, you're right. I don't have it to put on, but yes, I am going to put it on the screen right now.
Okay, awesome.
Here we go.
So I think as you know the numbers of what you did this year, then you can really stop to think about what is a a realistic goal, an aggressive goal for me in the year ahead. And there's some things you probably want to take a look at. You might have been in some kind of situation with your family where you truly had a month or two where you were not at your best, because of COVID or some situation that happened in your life. So you
Oh,
want to
wrong one.
consider, right? You want to consider those factors. Also, if you had one big deal, I spoke to a client yesterday and they usually have an average price of about a half a million. They sold one house for 3 million. It was a fluke. It was a crazy thing that happened. And therefore, as they're looking at their production goals ahead, they need to consider that. They might not say, well, I can do 20% more because they had that one big deal. And speaking of the 20%, people will always ask me, what is a good percentage of growth each year? And a friend of mine who owns a huge corporation said, if any business is growing consistently by 20% in revenue, they're a good business. However, you have to take into account a lot of factors. So maybe last year you were working part-time, now you're working full-time. Maybe last year was your first year and now you're 1 year more experienced. So the growth is going to occur more rapidly. Or maybe you've added a couple of additional team members or admin. So we want to start with, what is that income number that I would be extremely excited about? And remember, guys, we can't be, what would be the word I'd use? Flippant about it. I love that number of a million. I love it. And less than 10% of the United States earns over $100,000 a year. So it's a tiny fraction that earn $1 million. And most of those people are entrepreneurs. So it is possible for you. And yet you need to think about, am I willing to show up and do the work? What is that going to do to my life? How much time will I need to spend? So we start with the net income. We do what Vija said. You take your average sales price, and this year it may be higher, right, than last year, because in most markets prices have gone up. You just divide that average sales price. You take your income goal, times average sales price times volume. Now you know how many transactions. So let's take, for an example, somebody says, well, I want to make $500,000 and my average commission check is $10,000. Well, I need to do 50 units, right? So we just do the math. And I love breaking it down to monthly and then even to weekly. The old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Now, you may then want to really decide, what is that ratio, listings versus buyer sides? Many of you probably were more buyer heavy this year than you've ever been maybe in your career. And there's still going to be a lot of buyers out there in the market next year. So do you want to be 50-50? Do you want to be 60% listings? So that will help you do your math on how many listing appointments you need to set, how many you need to go out on, and how many you're actually going to take, and then how many buyer deals you'll do. So
Debbie, I'm just going to jump in really, really quick for our new agents. There's so many new agents, which I love on here. I find, and I don't know if you agree, I find for most new agents, you're going to be more lopsided with buyers. Most agents start buyer heavy. That's okay. Right. So I think that if you don't know the answer, and some of you have typed in earlier, maybe you don't have a database or whatnot, you might see a 70-80%, weighting on buyers this year. And that's fine. Ultimately, you're going to learn, at least if you go to Debbie or Ben or I's, trainings, that we want to focus on listings down the road, but that's okay. You start somewhere. The other thing I wanted to jump in is I wanted to actually go back to total net income. So for those of you who are a little more seasoned, what I like to put in here is that would be income, after any cost of sale. So if I'm a team and I'm paying out 50%, for
Yes.
instance, I like my net income to be what I used to call it company dollar, net income, whatever. I always track what's coming into the team, GCI or gross commission income. It was top line revenue that I never really saw. So
Yeah.
for me, I always tracked what my team got, which was funny because Keller Williams does all of their awards on GCI. And I would sometimes go, oh yeah, like we did 1.7 million, because what I was tracking is like I was at, a million or 1.1, say, net
Right.
income, right? So anyway,
And
yeah.
I think it's better to do that because you can almost get this false thing in your mind and sometimes even spend money you don't actually have, right? Because you're
Yeah.
focused on,
Yeah.
and the GCI, it doesn't, then you can't watch your margins, right?
Yeah.
Of the expenses, and which we want to be all very mindful and careful about. And back to the new agent comment, there is a great saying, I didn't make it up, let the buyers fund your listing career. And starting out the age of 18, I didn't find a lot of sellers who would work with me. So I held anybody and everybody's open house I could get. I worked with any and every buyer. And lo and behold, those young first time buyers within a few years all became sellers, right? Which is
Yeah. That's the same with
the
me.
beauty of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's great.
So then if we take a look at average net commission check, a couple of things I want to throw out there for you guys to think about that I've been challenging our coaching clients to take a look at. I've been challenging them to take a look at what percentage of commission are they earning, right? So if you are a buyer agent, you're hostage to pretty much what is going to be paid to you based on how they listed that property. You don't have a lot of control of that. And yet, if you're a listing agent, I'd really like you to take a look at how are you doing holding the line to earn what you deserve on commission percentage. We all know commission's negotiable by law, that we can't price fix. However, you know what you're worth. And one thing Ben and I challenged our clients recently on Via is just do one thing now and forever, stop volunteering to cut. So hold yourself accountable to do your best. Don't volunteer. Have some great ways to overcome that. So you want to track how are you doing, earning what you deserve. And then also, if you'd like to increase your volume and your average check, consider not giving up your bread and butter and yet maybe taking 20% of your time and moving into a little bit higher end market segment. Many of the clients we coach here at Forward are luxury agents or higher end markets, luxury markets. Our client Ernie Carswell, he's Katy Perry and Fergie's agent. He's an amazing guy in Beverly Hills. He sold the Brady Bunch house. And yet you don't have
Oh,
to do ultra luxury. Sometimes it's just choosing a geographic farm that's 100 or 200,000 more than a price point you normally work. And you can really bump up that volume and income by just adding a little higher price point to the mix.
well, that's what I did. I teach it. I don't teach it very often. I teach it about once a year, how I doubled my price point in 3 or 4 years. But I target, and this is a VIA term, so this is a made up term, but I target what I call entry level luxury.
Mm-hmm.
So I am in love with that $1 million price point. I think that is my dream, a million to 1.5. Give it to me every day. It's I don't need the 3, 5, $10 million homes. I love that price point. I think it's great. I've always loved it and I've always targeted it. I did want to go back to Debbie really. I have a friend named Deb.
You can call
Debbie,
that.
really quick on the average net commission. So one of the probably the biggest perks, there's a lot of perks about being at Keller Williams, but one of the big ones is my referral business exploded when I got here. I had come from a local firm and I had no idea the power of referral. And I'm at a point, where between 20 and 40% of my given business can come from agents around the country referring me, which means there's a lot of referral fees. So I've actually never calculated my commission, and we have to be careful using percentages because we have all different brokerages representing here today. So what I'm about to give is just an example, that's all. But I know that some agents use 3% as their average commission. I actually always use 2.5 because my net commission, I always wanted to count it after the referral fee came out, Debbie.
Yes.
So for me, I always calculated it at 2.5. I always calculate my average price at lower than I think because I really want to push myself to focus on units, which we'll talk about. But so I want to push that artificially. Frankly, it's like a Jedi mind trick I use. I want to push my net commission a little low. I want to push my average price point just a little lower because I want my brain to see that high unit number I need to hit. Because when your average price point is high like mine, you can fall into a trap of, I mean, I can go sell, I've sold 2 million to $2.5 million homes in the last 2 months. I don't want to sit on my laurels though because of that, right? I want to push myself on units. So yeah.
You know, on the open houses hosted, I know this has been so disrupted this year, and yet we'll have them back, and we already have them back in some version in some, you know, parts of the country, in some areas. Interesting, at our event last January, Ben and I interviewed a guy who came out of the jewelry. He owned a jewelry store retail business, and he decided open houses were his thing. And he had a little special thing he did. He would basically get a new listing and he would get the seller to agree to allow him to hold open house from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day until the house was sold. And he said, you know, what's the difference? I go, I set up my computer, I have my earbuds, I've got everything going on. It's my virtual or mobile office in a sense. And he said, you know, there might be some days only 2 prospects would come in and they'd be amazing prospects. Sellers or in the neighborhood or homeowners would come in and say, what are you doing? I've never seen open houses like this. So for those of you who are new, in his first year in real estate, now he held a lot of open houses. He said about 300 days out of the year, these full day open houses, he sold 44 houses, 44 in his first year from open.
Wow.
Right? And so you kind of, sometimes we might tend to overcomplicate things, you think?
Yeah, well, and we train on open houses all the time. And you all, if you haven't been to our Open House 101, I'll do another one soon. 1 hour of really good open house training will completely tweak how you do open houses. And it doesn't mean you get a latte stand or a hot dog cart.
Right.
What it does is it helps you understand what your outcome is that you're seeking. And your outcome is that you're seeking, guys, is an appointment. And we all know, any of us who have been doing this more than 1 or 2 years know the delta between setting the appointment and attending the appointment. When the delta is short, you have a higher show up rate. The longer in advance you follow up, or the longer in advance you set the appointment, the lower the show up rate is, right? So I help break it down. It's just an hour training. I'll try to do it next month. So team leaders, I'm sure will follow up with me on that. But it's not hard. It's not complicated. We use some of Debbie's scripts. We use some of Ben's scripts. I give you everything you need. And you should look at open houses differently if you haven't had success in the past.
Okay. So Vija, tell me about tell me a little bit about the business days not worked. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I've not seen that before.
I know, this is a Ben thing, right? I think what that means is, I think what that means would be a 48-week year or a 46-week year.
Days off, time off, that type of thing? Or is that
I'm guessing that's what he means. Yeah. I actually don't know.
Yeah. I normally, it might be a typo because normally, of course, what I would encourage everyone to do is really sit down and look at what are the days that I actually will work in the next year. Many of us are, we love to work. And my husband had to get a hold of me many years ago and say, whoa, you're working too much. And we do a thing every year. We get the big plastic calendar from Staples with all the months of the year. And he makes me go through and mark off the vacations, the getaways, and the holidays and the days off. And so I know many of you, especially through COVID, you probably work 7 days a week. That's not healthy. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, it's not unusual to work six, and yet it's not great to work seven. And you need to have those things
Mhm.
to look forward to so that you can set those short-term goals in between. And we can often say to ourselves, geez, all we do is work. And yet it's nice to look up at that calendar and see that next little break or getaway coming. So I always encourage our clients to really figure out how many days will I work and mark off those days. And if you are a team leader, you're going to want to be sure that you do this with your team so that they're not all gone on vacation when it's time for you to go away, right? We
Yeah,
need good coverage, right? Good coverage.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Hours practicing scripts. Sometimes it's hard to find time to practice. I always did some creative things. Like I had a rule for myself that when I'm driving in the car, I need to just listen to scripts. If it's in the workday, and I'm driving in the car, I'm just going to listen to scripts. And by the way, Via, you're more than welcome to take I think I have 80 pages of scripts that have matching audio tracks marked for each. So if they want them, they're more than welcome to have them. And that way you can just turn them on in your car and listen to them. We
Wow.
have a PDF that goes with it. You may want to print that PDF and keep it in with you. So, you know, if you're my daughters at one point decided to play, they were good soccer players. They decided to play softball. They were terrible at it. So they were out in the field without much going on. So I could read my scripts. So I had to find, you know, creative times to do that
Hmm.
while you're getting ready in the morning, while you're driving your kids to school. One of our clients said that her 8-year-old knows our scripts. So find some creative times to practice, even if it's only 15 minutes a day. I think it makes a big difference. And then I think we talked a lot already about contacts and dials for the year and tracking. So I think we're probably good there, right? So what's,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So let me go back to, yeah, I'm sure I have a feeling, Debbie, that he was talking about, I'm just trying to find the slide deck here. I have a feeling you might have been talking about one of two things, either showing up to work and not lead generating or a 48-week year. We'll get clarity
it could
on
be,
that one for
I feel
sure.
like it's knowing Ben as you and I do, it's probably showing up to work and not lead generating. I have a
Yeah,
suspicion.
probably,
Yeah.
probably. We're gonna so that was kind of the beef, the beefy worksheet, so to speak. What I want to move into now, and this is really, really important, and I know that it's been 90 minutes. If you want to stand up, stretch. I've been standing up the whole time because sitting down is the new cancer, everybody. So I'm at my new L-shaped sit stand desk, by the way, standing up the whole time. I want to move into how to make these into action plans, and I want to preface this by saying I knew this was going to be a lot of information. So thinking ahead, see, I'm always thinking ahead. Tomorrow on my Wednesday webinar, and if those of you are here who are not regulars on our Wednesday webinar, you are very much invited. I do a Wednesday webinar every Wednesday at noon Pacific time for 1 hour. It is completely geared towards you. It is highly tactical, very specific topics like how to do a buyer consult, how to how to do open houses, what scripts are working. I mean, I've done how to talk about data, how to compile data, you name it. And we're going to do it tomorrow. Wendy Papasan's coming on with me, and we're going to go through how to do the GPS, which is kind of what we're going to go into now, which is you can plan anything on one page. And then how to have a relationship with your goals and your plans, and a relationship with your calendar. And I get asked that question the most. How can I translate this onto our calendar? And that's the 411. So Wendy and I are going to deep dive tomorrow. I'm just going to gloss over it now because I knew that this is probably a 2-part series. If that feels like a lot of time for you, 1 hour a week on Wednesdays from noon to 1. I can share with you that when my education calendar started increasing, so did my wealth and so did my income.
Mhm.
With the more classes I started attending, it was a direct correlation. It's like the chart just went up. So, which was weird because you'd think that, well, I don't get it. How can you spend that much time in class and learning and seminars and yet you're making more income? And it did every single year. So anyway, thought I'd throw that in. All right.
Tell Wendy hello for me. I used to coach
I
Wendy
will.
too.
You did? Oh,
I
you
did.
coach us all.
As
You
she was
coached us
building
all.
her team back in the day. So I have to tell her I said hi. I watch all her
Oh, I
emails and
will.
everything. So I see how great she's doing.
She is doing great. I will tell her that. Well, briefly, we're just going to kind of skim over this because we're going to kind of deep dive in this tomorrow. Um, we're going to focus on business goals today, right? And how to do that. I'm going to give you a model. It's actually, I think there's a model in your, yes, there's a model in your workbook, and I'll kind of walk you through that a little bit. But I also wanted to add a couple slides. You know, don't forget these 135, we call them GPAs at the Ben Kinney companies. They're called GPSs. They can be used for anything. They can be used for your financial goals, for relationship goals. I have done a GPS on relationship goals. That you on health, I've absolutely done one on health. I lost 70 pounds a few years ago and it was GPSed out. In fact, we'll go into it in a minute, but I did a 1355. The more specific you are, the more likely you will hit a goal. And then you can do it on anything personal you want. You know, if you have a goal to read 36 books a year, for instance, you could do a GPS on how to do that, right? All right, so achieving goals, we call them goals, priorities, activities. The traditional Keller Williams way is goals, priorities, and strategies. So either way, goals, priorities, strategies, or goals, priorities, and activities, up to you. So on your page 8, on your workbook page 8, is a blank template for you to write your own GPS. Now, I have a template I use on Google Sheets. I've done this on Microsoft Word. It doesn't matter. You can do it on a crayon, use a crayon and do it on a napkin if you want. It doesn't matter. I love the way this has got the Ben twist to it. And when I started doing it the way he trained only last year, I only learned this last year because he did it slightly different than me. It completely made it better. So here's the first thing I want to point out that Ben taught me. When you write your goal out, this is very important. Write it out as a full sentence, and you need to include the following, especially this is for business, okay? Has to include units, average price. Remember, if you're new, make it up, volume, and GCI.
Mhm.
4 things. And you write it out as a complete sentence, because if you just say, Debbie, I want to sell $20 million in volume.
Mhm.
And you get referred and you sell one $5 million home, right? Woo! Which would be amazing, right? Are you going to probably not work as hard and probably tell
Sure.
yourself, well, I just need 15 million.
Yep.
If you list it all and you say, well, I think my average price is going to be 500 and I need to sell 40 homes to get to my 20 million. And that $5 million home is 1 unit, which means I have to pressure myself to get 39 more, right? So the fact is that if you write it out in a sentence like this, your brain is going to not miss any bases. There's also a lot of research that's showing we need to write more narratively. I don't know if you guys heard this. Debbie, have you heard this? Jeff Bezos has forbade his Amazon people to send memos or emails now in bullet forms. They have to write them out in narrative talk.
Interesting.
So, yep. You guys can Google that. And I don't know if that's every communication, but I read that he no longer wants to see bullet points because the brain works better when it can read things in a narrative way. So writing them out like this in a sentence, including all of the aspects, it sounds like a small little tweak, and it actually helped me a lot. So I highly recommend it. So this is on page 8. Page 9 is a great example. And for a lot of you here, page 9 is really going to be the basis. You probably, the only thing you really have to need, and by the way, the sentence on page 9 broke the rule of what I just said. So be sure that you write out your sentence like we had on page 8. So I want you to write it out the right way. But this is going to help you because priority one. So remember, we've already gone through and we've decided that, hey, I'm going to sell 24 homes on this example. In this case, the agent decided that 17 of those would be buy side and 9 would be listing side. So they've already kind of pre-decided their percentages. And then the focusing question that I always ask agents on my team or anyone I work with is I say, okay, where are those 17 buyers going to come from? Where are they going to come from? Where are those 9 listings going to come from? And what I recommend doing is on your 5 strategies or actions, you can call them GPA, GPS, doesn't matter. You list the sources, okay? So you can see here we have the sources. Now, ideally, the numbers don't add up. This is where we don't want the math to add up. So this is saying strategy 1, sphere and past clients, for instance, 6 buyer closings, open houses 5, 8, 9, 10, 11. I like it when the strategy numbers are higher than the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to pressure myself so that each strategy has a higher amount of units needed than the goal, right? So I haven't done the math in the example, but I don't think the math works. 3, 6, so in this case, it's exact. I don't like that. My recommendation is that you pad it a little bit and that you kind of push yourself and that the numbers don't add up. Same with the listings. So they have buyers as the example on priority 1, listings on priority 2. Really important on priority 3. And Debbie, I don't know if you have anything to add here, your growth plan. This is your be, do, have. This is, what do I have to learn to hit this? Who do I have to be to hit this? And look, a lot of you guys, I mean, if you look at strategy 1 in the example, I will practice and master the listing and the buyer consult, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really, I mean, it's basic, but it's true. You know, I'll read Atomic Habits. So it might be, I might read the one thing. What I want all of you to do is put on here, I will listen to the Win, Make, Give podcast, and I will listen to the Empire Building podcast. But that's just because I'm shamelessly self-promoting Ben and my podcast. But we're going to go into Win, Make, Give a little later. I actually do want you guys, we're going to send you a link. I want you all here to take Ben's wealth building class. It's life-changing. All right. So then this talks about, you know, priority number 3 would be your growth plan. So this is the format I absolutely recommend. Wendy and I are going to really, really jump in and do a deep dive on this tomorrow. So don't miss that from noon to 1. Debbie, you're going to walk us through, I love this self-assessment. I love it. You're going to walk us through this.
You know, so something I've noticed, and I know some of you are new, and it's so funny. I was thinking about, as we were talking about being new, my broker, he was very tough on me. It was a good thing he was, though. And he said to me, you know, you're new. You don't know a thing. So you're going to prospect 5 hours a day because you're going to screw up a lot. And he was right. You know, I prospected 5 hours a day and I got deals. And yet I wanted to get better. You know, I wanted to make progress. And I kind of came up with this thought of every year, I really need to take the key areas of my business and I need to score myself. Am I making progress? One thing I've noticed about the real estate industry in general, it does seem that agents get good enough and they hang out there. Whereas we said a little bit ago, a great athlete is always looking to beat their personal best. So as you go through these 2 pages, you know, just instinctively on a scale of 1 to 10, where would I score myself? And then go back and look at your 2 or 3 lowest scoring items and think, all right, so if I scored myself low in time management, what are 2 or 3 things that I need to do to improve in that category? So you're not going to tackle them all. You're going to start with those that are your lowest because those might get in the way if you get achieving your goal. Once you get a great plan going for those 2 or 3, you start to see improvement. Now you can go back. And I don't really think any of us would be likely to score ourselves a perfect 10, because I do think you can always, no matter how great you are, you can always beat your own personal best. And, you know, Vija, when we were going through the growth portion, and please note, as I say this is not a pitch for forward coaching, okay? I think everyone needs to find the type of coaching that works for them. And I know you guys have a lot of options to consider. And yet sometimes people will say, well, I can't do coaching because I got to lead with revenue. And I always think, that's a little bit like sending your child, saying, I can't send my child to medical school because they're not a doctor yet and they need to lead with revenue. Well, how do you learn? And to Via's point, the more you invest your time, your energy, and even invest money in coaching and training for yourself, I always think of it this way. We had to learn things the hard way. Our goal would be you get to choose and find the faster path. So don't gloss over, I'm too busy to join the session tomorrow, or I'm too busy to work on my scripts. This is where the rubber really meets the road. And there's a lot of conversation about how the 80-20 rule, 20% of the agents do 80% of the business, is going to shift. And it's going to be 10% do 90% of the business. So if you're not practicing, if you're not working on improving, somebody out there is. And when you meet them across the table, they will maybe beat you, right? So this is a great one. If you currently have a coach or you're working with your team leader on your business planning, this would be a really good one to take and discuss with that coach and say, this is where I feel I'm weak. Help me come up with some strategy.
Yeah, my team leaders don't know this yet, but they're going to do this for me. I'm going to make them a different one. So, but you know why? You know, I have to say that because I have such amazing team leaders. They would literally probably start sending them to me now. They're that good. All right. So the next slide is actually, we're going to actually refer you to page 12 of your workbook. Debbie, we don't have a slide on this, but page 12 is the top 3 habits from the self-assessment.
Yes, and so on this one, one of the things I've discovered after 20 years of coaching great agents is that most good agents will run about 30% of their day is income producing. And income producing would be going on listing appointments, showing buyers, writing offers, negotiating, prospecting, lead follow-up, those things that create new transactions. And a good goal is to say, I need to get to 50% of my day income producing. And then as you grow, become even more successful, gain leverage, I want to ultimately get to 80% of my day is income producing. One of the things I'm going to be encouraging our coaching clients to do in the next couple of weeks is keep a time log. Just jot down throughout the day what you're doing. By jotting that down, it's going to naturally make you better because you're more aware. And then at the end of the day, go back and write IP, income producing, or was it IS, income servicing, or S, just stuff. I don't know what I was doing. And then tally that up at the end of a week to get a view of what percentage of your time is income producing. So the goal is to move things off your plate, be more organized, more systematic, and get up to at least 50% income producing.
Okay. So once we do the top 3 habits, then we can kind of create our perfect day, right?
Right. And on the perfect day, I would start with your non-negotiable personal things. So do you need to work out each morning to keep your energy up? Do you have church on Sunday and that's so important to you? Or I need to be there for my kids at a certain time of day because they need help with the schoolwork, or my spouse needs a date night with me because I'm always on my phone. So what are those things that are your non-negotiables? Get those in there first and then stack the day. Part of those 3 good habits could even be, what time am I getting up? What time am I doing my lead generation, right? And having that schedule so that you're doing the things, not just that are your highest and best use, but you're doing those things at the most productive time of day for that activity, right? So, and it's a work in progress. That's why I love using November and December. Set up your 2021 perfect day And don't wait. Kind of, we've all said this, I'll start my diet on Monday. Don't start your perfect day on January 2. Start it now. And then if you fall off the wagon, if there's a couple lumps and bumps, gives you a chance to adapt and adjust. And also, it does give you a chance that if the schedule isn't working, what changes need to be made to make that schedule work for you? And share it and share your plan with those in your life who support you, will be a good, positive accountability partner. And certainly, spouse, significant other, family, they need to know what your days, what your work weeks are going to look like.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And be sure to put that power hour in. That is the power hour and your 50-minute review along with exercise. You don't overpressure yourself. The perfect day can really only have like 3 to 5 elements and the rest can be stuff. I like that. I like that you said that. S for stuff. So we know that productive agents typically have 3 to 5 key sources of listing and buyer business. Honestly, I find it's closer to 3. Ben always says 5 and he teaches 5. And I always sit there and go, it's typically, I see 3, but I'll go with Ben. I'll go with you.
Well, and normally they'll have, I often see they'll have 1 or 2 that
yes,
they're really good
exactly.
at. And then we get that third going. And my suggestion would be, remember, they're not 3 or 5 that you don't already have. We're going to take what we have, do it well, do it better, and then we can go and add another source. Because if you think of it this way, let's say that all you did for business was open house and COVID happened. Now what, right? Or, I've sold real estate when fixed rates were very, very high, and suddenly many of your people in your database are not moving. And yet there's still buyers and sellers moving, but it may not be your past clients. So that's why you want to have 3 with action steps. What are you doing specifically? Then add a 4th and then add a 5th. I've even heard Ben say have 6. I've actually heard him say that. So 3 to 5.
3 to 5. There you go. The important thing is we take action, that we don't just do the planning, right? So we need to lead generate and lead convert. So Debbie, we're going to go to page 14 on our workbook. And on page 14, you have a tracking form. It's the 10-10-10 daily tracking form. So tell us about this.
This is how we break it down with our clients. We encourage them to have those 10 actual conversations a day, eye to eye or ear to ear. If you happened pre-COVID to go to a networking meeting and you spoke to 10 people there, well, you got your 10, or 10 people came into your open house, but 10 conversations, 10 emails, remember, not a group email, but 10 emails to create a new opportunity, and 10 texts every day. And if you're a real overachiever, you could even add to that 10 handwritten notes, right? Which some people do.
And I would say we could add in Messenger, Instagram DM, Twitter DM, whatever you're using. Text is sort of used lightly. Okay, that's great. So I love that, and let us know if you guys start adopting that and it's working well. The next page is also, we don't have a slide for it, but it's our menu for success.
Right.
And I think you and I talked about this one. This may need to be
adapted a little, right? A little COVID friendly. You might have to adapt it a bit. And guys, I apologize, in a couple of minutes, I have to jump off to go to my next webinar. And this is actually a really good one to leave you with, because when I started as that new agent, my broker handed me something that looked very much like this. And he said, you're not going to sell or list a house every day. And yet you need to have a measure. When you go home at night, you can feel good about the fact that you had a very productive day. And he said, here's a way to figure that out. You can create a different type of day each day. You're going to do your lead gen, but you're going to do different activities. Pick from this menu of activities. And yet at the end of the day, you need to have 30 points. And keep in mind, that wasn't 30 contacts. It's a combination of the activities you see on that worksheet. So I knew if I had 30 points, I did a good job today. I knew success was around the corner. And I think it was part of keeping me accountable to really maximize that income producing time in the day. It made me very focused on what am I spending my time on. And I used that for my entire career. It just it wasn't just that it kept me more efficient. I think it did give me good peace of mind that when I went home each day, I had done my best in that day. So it's an awesome
Well,
form.
you defined winning. You defined
Yes,
winning. I mean, we have to have a scorecard to know if we're winning. That's what I think so brilliant about this. And so whatever your menu looks like, everyone here might have a different menu. I think this is brilliant because it's why we have scorecards in sports so we know who won. Yeah, Debbie, we are actually wrapping up. We only have a few more minutes, so I want to kind of get briefly to explain to you the rest of what's in your workbook, really quick. But Debbie, while we're just wrapping up here in a minute or two, I think that we can end the business planning portion with, reminding everybody that they need to be absolutely obsessed with adding people to their database, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. We didn't think of it back in the day that way. We thought you work with
Yeah.
your hot leads, you throw the rest in the trash. And yet you look at every great business in the world and they opt you in and they nurture you over a long period of time. And there's so many amazing campaigns, whether you're using Command or using Brevity, there's just amazing campaigns to nurture those people. And it's valuable. They will tell you around here, I am super obsessed with opting people into our world and graciously connecting with value. And so you don't have to hard sell them. And yet that is how you build your community.
Hmm.
I used to coach Chris Heller's team in San Diego, and they had 20,000 people in their marketing list. Were they all past clients or sphere? No, not at all. Some they'd met at his radio show or open houses. Some were really virtually strangers that had opted in off of an online lead and they never connected. Every month they would get 7 to 9 listings a month out of the group of, I don't know who the heck these people are. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And they just have been nurtured. So please just
Yeah.
really, if you're brand new, start now. Start with the
Yeah.
CRM, start capturing and tracking those people. Most of us made a mistake and did not do that well in our first year or two. So we would like you to avoid our pain.
Yeah. For sure. And I think that we'll wrap the business planning here with a caveat. And the caveat is I want to ask all of you guys a favor because I care about each and every person here. And that favor is whether you've taken it or not, will all of you please take Ben's Win, Make, Give wealth building
Absolutely.
class. It will change your life, especially if you do it between now and the end of the year, because I bet you it'll cause you to modify your 2021 goals if you haven't done it yet. Hattie is going to, oh, she already did. She's so fast. I love it. Hattie put the link. It is free. There's a whole bunch of downloads on the podcast that you can get from the Win, Make, Give site. And our gift to you is they're in your workbook. So the workbook that you're using for today has a lot of these downloads in it. And so you can start working through all of these without taking the Win, Make, Give course. But I am telling you, take it. I did it with my 17-year-old who it's changed the trajectory of his life.
Mhm.
It's the biggest gift you can give your kids. Do it with your spouse. Do this journey together so that one of you's not, yanking the other one along. I can't recommend it enough. We started this with our mission statement and our vision is Win, Make, Give. And that means the last part of this is give. So what I've asked Ben to do is to give a webinar on his models for giving. And we're going to have him do that over the next few months because all of us probably can give more. We want to give more, but we are focused on our own financial issues and feel like we can't. And so we're going to kind of walk through Ben's journey and how he gives so much. and he's going to impart his wisdom on us. So we'll do that together. I don't have a date for that yet, but we'll do that. So win, make, give. The big part of this that we went over today was how to win and how to set your up for success. Debbie DeGrote, Forward Coaching, thank you so much for joining us today.
We'll get the scripts your way. And thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye, Vija. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and let us know if you have any questions.